So here's the lowdown on women's dating advice, love advice, and why you need to take it with a grain of salt. Their advice about love usually starts and ends with "love me and I'll love you," and that's it. That's basically how you can sum it up in about 4 or 5 words. But why it falls short and why it's incomplete is because of their own solipsism, because of their own nature. They either don't know how to, or they don't recognize, I'm not sure which one it is, that there's limitations on the amount of information, authenticity, and transparency that they're going to convey to you guys, simply because they don't see it or they don't care about it. Especially the ones that are like, mid-late 30s, traditional conservatives. They're looking to get wifed up. They want to get married and have kids. So they'll conveniently overlook certain components. And I'll explain it with this example. As we're talking, 2 examples, for example. As we're talking, the question comes up, can men and women love each other? We hear things from guys all the time, the harsh comments like, not all women are like that, or all women are like that. And you start seeing them lean into MGTOW, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, is there any such thing as true love? And I said, well, it depends how you view love, because men and women love each other differently. And again, you have to keep in mind, this is an expert that often talks about these sort of concepts. And I had to explain the difference between how women love in an opportunistic fashion, also known as Berfault's Law, and men love, in a more conventional sort of fashion, a more Disney-esque, sort of fashion. What do you call it, Rolla?
I call it idealistic love versus
idealistic. Yeah.
So men love idealistically, women love opportunistically, and I mean that in the nicest sense that I can say that. I say opportunism because it's a clinical definition, not a you guys are opportunistic.
Precisely. Yeah, and that's how the conversation goes. But that turns into shock, and then the conversation slowly, proceeds to, well, I just want to love a man. I want to have a regular guy. I don't like chads. I like the regular, sort of dudes, read between the lines of the betas. And they're projecting, giving hope to men, thinking, well, if I just wife up this traditional conservative, everything will be fine. But what they forget to mention to guys is that women need, for them to be happy in a long-term relationship or a marriage, because their interest declines very quickly versus men. Men is a lot longer. For women, it's a lot more quicker anyway, especially if the guy relaxes, doesn't chase excellence, gets fat. So let me put it this way. If she's a 7 out of 10 and she gets wifed up by a guy that's like a 9 out of 10, he's got a great job. He's chased excellence. He has pieces of paper on the wall framed in mahogany. He's got his degrees. They have a couple of kids. And 5, 6, or 7 years goes by. He doesn't upgrade his skills. He starts to get laid off, can't find a job, can't hold down a job, maybe puts on a few pounds, gets a little fat, has some Cheeto dust on his chin 7 days a week from watching too much on TV, not engaging with the kids or her. And then one day she's sitting at her desk, and Ryan's buddy Steve from accounting comes along to borrow the stapler, and he's a 17 out of 10. Her natural predisposition is going to be to want to optimize her hypergamy, and she can't contract out of that. And that's something that women don't tell guys when they dispense their dating advice, because they either can't see it, or even if they can see it, they're not going to tell you if it conflicts with their own biological imperative to get wifed up and have kids. They will tell you stories like, I don't really look for the chat. Bullshit. Like, we know the truth about that. So that's how I would sum up the concept. But I want to pass it to the panel to let you guys chime in on that, because I know that you've all got some good feedback on that topic.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like you said, that he gets fat, he does this, he does basically backslides. And that's true. Some guys just give up or assume that they got the prize. But another thing that guys are falling, and I talk about this in the 2017 21 convention speech, is some guys it's through no fault of their own. Like, for example, my whole red pilling started when I got hit by a car. Nothing I could do about that, nothing to do with me. Some guys catch a sickness that's outside of their control. So it doesn't really matter, even if you are on top of your game, that circumstances can change things. So I know it's a nuance, but I just find it's nice if you don't frame it as long as you do this, you're going to get that, because that's a covert contract. It's not going to work. There's just no guarantees with this. So it's just something you have to be mindful of.
I think one of the I've got a couple of posts I just put in the chat there. I've got one about female dating advice, but the other one that I have on there is what I call, it's one of my more classic ones. It's called The Ballad of Clark Kent. And what I meant by that is like I kind of spelled out this story of Superman, right? And Superman and Lois Lane. And when Superman meets Lois Lane, he can, you know, bend steel in his hands. He can fly. He can do all the things that Superman can do, right? And so, what does Lois want? She wants that in her life. It's exciting and it's fun. But once she starts to get into that relationship with Superman, she turns him back into Clark Kent. And now it's like, why do you always have to be out there? Why do you have to do what you do? Why do you have to, you know, do that bit? Why are you insecure in your masculinity? That's why you have to bend steel bars. You know, was that why you have to stop, you know, speeding locomotives, that kind of stuff? It's like, why aren't you home? Why aren't you, you know, so it's this sort of progressive degradation of Superman into Clark Kent. And so what happens is then she gets bored of Clark Kent because he doesn't do all those things anymore. All the things that she told him that he shouldn't do, you know, where's my ring kind of thing, you know, and all the things that made him Superman, he gives up because he thinks that's what, well, first of all, it's what the blue pill has taught him. And then second of all, he thinks that that's what's going to appease Lois Lane. And so what happens is then later Lois Lane meets Batman, meets Bruce Wayne, right? And he's a millionaire, and he's brooding, and he's, you know, he can't fly, but he, you know, kicks ass, takes names, and lives by his own rules, kind of thing. And you know, he's an outlaw, and he's like, you know, he's a bad boy, right? So
one-itis.
Yeah, exactly. So what happens is Lois Lane ends up fucking Batman, and you know, Superman or Clark Kent finds Batman and Lois Lane together, and you know, the first thing he says is, I don't see how you could do this, you know. And then of course Lois says, well, you know, he's a superhero.
Yeah. If I want to chime in here, it's 100%. Like anytime you're in a relationship or a marriage or anything with a girl, like definitely just don't listen to her when she's complaining about what you did originally to get her. Like if you're always hitting the gym when you hooked up with her, or you were, you know, going to kickboxing classes or whatever, that's the guy she fell in love with. That's the guy that initially got her attraction. And that is what makes you attractive to other girls too, because these girls, when they date you, they'll like intentionally sabotage you. They'll feed you a little bit more. They'll bring you that cinnamon bun. They'll try to get you fat in a kind of protective way to keep other women from you, because they're so insecure themselves. They're like, I've got to make him less attractive so that I can keep him from me only. That's what I've had experience in my life. And that's why I fundamentally just don't listen to them. I did a podcast this week with Kyle Trouble, and I intentionally asked my girlfriend all the time, like, all right, where do you want to go tonight? Pasta or burgers? And she says pasta. I'm like, good, we're going to get some burgers. Like I just constantly let her know I'm not listening to her, and I'm keeping her in check. Because if you start listening to her, give it a shot. Start complying with the women you're dating right now, and watch how quickly they drop off. You'll see it. If you have the red pill lens, you'll see them. Their interest starts to drop off, and slowly but surely they'll drift away.
What it is that they're not telling guys is that guys need to suppress their desire and need to scatter seed, and women need to suppress their desire and need to optimize their hypergamy. It's when they feel like that's not optimized that they'll start considering other options and monkey branching. In fact, I did a really good video. It's about an hour long for my private men's community on why women mate switch. It's based on a clinical study. And to sum it up very quickly, it's simply because when women feel like their hypergamy is not optimized and they can do better, that's when Steve from accounting starts to look appealing.
I was going to say is that one of the reasons that I think that guys should not listen to the dating advice of women is that their advice is almost always directed at the beta bucks long-term side of hypergamy. The women, even if they
well, that's why you get somebody like Kezia Noble with the giant tits hanging right out of her top, talking to these guys and selling her courses for $5,000, right?
Well, they're looking at that right there is that's just pandering right there. I mean, she might as well be a Snapchat chick. Okay, the advice is not why guys are going there to you know, to listen to her, right? It's whenever, and this is one commonality I see amongst all, you know, quote unquote dating experts, right? They're all dating experts, right? They all prioritize satisfying the female sexual strategy above all other things, right? Because that is what they feel is correct. Women are always going to filter their advice through their emotional, the emotional interpretive process. They're never going to do it through the rational process. They're always going to do it through what makes them feel a certain way. Right. So if you want, quote unquote, if you want to have a sex, or if you want to have a successful relationship with a guy or with a woman, then you have to do X, Y, and Z to make her feel A, B, and C. Right. So it's always guys like maintaining who they are, but also, jumping through, all of these hoops to give them certain feelings. And those are usually the certain feelings that they only got when they were single. So when they were single and you were exciting and you were fun, like I said, you were Superman, that is what they want to feel when you're Clark Kent, right? But they actively work against you, staying Superman, because if you are, then that creates dread and that creates competition anxiety, and that sets them off kilter. So it's like they want this dangerous man, but they want the dangerous man to be to be able to turn him off and to say, okay, that felt good. It's like what I call the roller coaster. They want this roller coaster of emotions and this roller coaster of feelings and everything else. But they want to know that behind the scenes, somebody's there making it safe for them. All right. They want to know that, the roller coaster is not actually going to fly off the tracks, or, they want to know that the parachute is going to deploy right at the last minute. So they have a great fun ride, but everything's going to still be okay. And what women do when they give men this advice, first of all, they're only perpetuating the blue pill, because they don't take into consideration, and why would they? They don't take into consideration what would satisfy that man in a long-term relationship, or what would serve him best in a long-term relationship. It's always what serves the woman. And so it's guys are deductive, usually rational deductive problem solvers, right? So what do? We're like, okay, I want sex. So how do I get sex? I go and I ask the woman what she wants so that I can get sex. And then what do? I do all those things that she told me to do, and then I'll get sex, because that's the deductive problem solving. It's like reproduction is a problem to be solved. That's why we see women as sexual objects, because they're tool. Whenever we see a naked chick, it triggers the same part of our brains as tool use. And the reason for that is because we see parts of that woman before we see the whole of that woman, because we're looking for sexual availability. We're looking for the sexual viability, which is she's got to be fit, she's got to be good looking, and she's got to be available, right? And so we look at that in parts rather than a whole. And the reason we do that is because those parts will solve the problem. And so we tend to deductively piece all of those parts together to get from point A to point B. Point A being, I'm single, to point B, I want to get laid, and I want to find out what it is that women want, right? Women will never tell you what it is that arouses them. They'll tell their girlfriends about that, but they're never going to tell a guy directly that. First of all, it's socially improper, right? They're only going to tell you what they're attracted to. They're not going to tell you what they're aroused by. So I want a nice guy. He's got to have a good heart. He's got to be funny. He's got to have confidence. And it's all these esoteric things that pretty much anybody can figure out, right? Anybody can say, okay, well, I want an asshole, and I want a drug addict, and I want this. They're not going to say that. They want somebody that's they want somebody that's healthy for them, but they still insist on wanting that polarity. But I think most guys think that in molding themselves into what they think this woman's ideal is, they lose all that. And by identifying with them, like most blue pill guys follow what I call an identification program. And so what they do is they try to get in touch with their feminine side. They try to make themselves make themselves like the allies of women. They try to become more like a woman, right? Because they believe that likes attract likes. And that's absolutely the opposite, because it's opposites that attract, not likes that attract. And women feed on that and they play on that. And I think that in some cases, women don't even really realize that they're giving men the opposite advice that they should probably be hearing. And that's one of the reasons why when I got into that conversation with Carly, I'm saying, look, sex is very important. Women want to say, no, it's not that important. I can't, it can't just be based on that. Well, it can when they're single and they're hot. But when you get older and you're past the wall, then women want to believe that there's got to be something more to it than just sex, because they know that once they get into menopause, that's going to change, and they're hoping that that guy is still going to stick around, even if she takes away the carrot of sex.
This is the thing, and I'll give my
1 sec. Just wanted to do a happy holidays to Nimble Fred, who just did 10 on the super chat.
Happy Hanukkah.
Okay, happy. Oh yeah, I just saw it on the screen. Yeah, with regards to women and sex. Yeah, I've always said this: girls mature much faster than boys. Okay. They stop maturing. They stop mentally maturing when they learn that men want to fuck them and the extents that men go to fuck them. They stop maturing. They only start to mature again when the caliber of guys who fucked them all through their teens, 20s, and early 30s are paying less attention to them. Right. So when you're dealing with a 36-year-old woman who figured out that men wanted to fuck her at the age of 15, you're probably dealing with a 34-year-old woman who acts like about a 21-year-old. That's generally how that works. We say women are overgrown children. They are, because they only start maturing again when the sexual attention dwindles. This is why women act like children within the constructs of anything, a sexual relationship or otherwise. This is why you should never take dating advice from women, is because women will always leave out the unflattering parts about what really turns them on, which is the truth.
Actually, Donovan, it's weird. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's weird you mentioned that. Rolo, you remember this from an Evo Psych thing, don't you? Where they were saying the purpose of menopause is for women to switch from caregiver to more of like a community caregiver. And I wonder, it just seems like it goes along the same thread as this. If you do know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I hear you.
100% right now. Just FYI.
I think that, and Donovan sort of hit on this, is I think that depending on where a woman is at a particular phase of her life, like I wrote about this in Preventive Medicine, she's going to give you different advice. The thing that and you guys can check me on this if you want, but one of the things I always hear from women, depending on what, if they're in their epiphany phase, they're going to give you advice that is going to appeal or is going to center on what they're going through at that particular time. If that woman is 35 or 36 or 37, she's looking for, where are all the nice guys? How come they can't be, where are all the guys that, want to step up and take over responsibility and marry me and have kids with me? That, woman's 36, 37, 38 years old. She's going to give you different advice than if she's like 29 or 30 years old. And if a woman is 22 years old, she's going to tell you, okay, here's what you can do to get me into bed, kind of thing. So you're looking at different advice at different phases, but in all of those phases, every time women give you advice, it's almost as if you're reading their dating profile. It's like, here's what you got to do to get me at this particular time in my life. And that's one of the biggest problems like I have with like this one chick that I think Rich was talking to, and then like say someone like Dr. Babe Love, right? It's always, what is it about me that I want guys to accommodate so that they will be my ideal guy? And they don't, I think that this gets back to their women's innate solipsism. It's always whatever is out here is to serve me. Whatever that guy over there, he's to serve me. Everything that is in my environment how does it affect me? And so that advice comes through that filter of solipsism, where it's like, how can men better serve me? How can men better accomplish optimizing hypergamy for me? How can men become my ideal? Well, here's my advice, right? And the other thing is that, and I should, and this gets to Ryan's point, is like when women offer advice for guys in that vein, like they basically want to tame the alpha. They want him to be a wild man, but they still want him to only be a wild man for her, right? It's that Beauty and the Beast thing. But what they do is, by doing that, they end up defeating their own interests. And so what they do is, if you tell a guy, it's like the observing a process will change that process. So if you tell a guy how to be, you just defeated the process, because the guy has to know that organically. He has to know all. That's why I have a post called "Just Get It." And if a guy has to have masculinity explained to him, he's not the guy for her. If she has to explain, like, here's how you get me, that just by default, you had to go and learn about this, you're not the guy for her, because she wants that from a guy who is actually genuinely like that, not playing that act, not playing that script. That's why women get pissed off at nice guys, because they think that they're just They're just being nice as an act to get into that woman's pants. Now, most of these guys are betas anyways that they would never consider, but then they go and they say, you know, oh my God, you know, I can't believe he actually wants to have sex with me. I thought we were great friends. No, you didn't. You knew that. You knew that he wanted to get with you, but you're playing coy like that. But the reason you don't want to get with him is because he had to petition you to find out how to get you. And no woman wants to do that. We were talking about this on Donovan's show. Women want to play the game. They don't want to be told that they're in a game. And they sure as shit don't want to tell you that you guys are both in a game and you're both playing this game. They want you to be able to play it because your ability and your capacity to play it reflects on who you are as a man and who you are as a person. What are you alpha? Because an alpha would not be asking me for advice. He would already know this shit.
All right. I just want to shout out quick to the super chats. Thanks to Nimble Fred for the $10. Happy holidays. James Miller, get it on. Donovan. Donovan. Greetings, Red Man Group. And the Bright 95. If a woman knew what they wanted, Cosmo would go out of business tomorrow. Thanks for the super chat, guys. Keep them coming. We really appreciate them. It helps support the creation of the content on the channel. We're going to go to calls soon. Donovan or Sharp Assist, can you post the number in the chat just so we can get the lines?
Yeah, real quick to finish my point is, and it's real simple, the reason why you shouldn't listen to dating advice from women, because just like Rolo says, there's a big difference between attraction and arousal. Women are attracted to betas. They are aroused by alphas, and the advice that women give makes you attractive as a beta male. Be nice, hold doors for her when she doesn't deserve it, make her the center of your world, make sure she completes you, etc., etc.
Be less so she can be more is my favorite.
Dude, perfect. But here's the thing, in order to become arousing to women, that's where the unflattering parts come in, right? Make yourself your own mental point of origin, which means to be selfish. Put your needs before hers. Never be afraid to check her. Never be afraid to correct her bad behavior. Punish the bad, reward the good. Women don't want men, and it's not like they don't want men to do these things, but if they were to actually tell men what it takes to make a woman's pussy wet, it makes them look bad. This is why women don't like to call themselves sluts or give advice in this way, because it makes them look bad. Because what it really takes to wet a woman's pussy, it's unflattering, which is why the red pill is constantly under attack anyway. And really the last reason that I'll point out in terms of why you should never take dating advice from women is that now women shouldn't take dating advice from women. And the reason why, no, I'm serious. This is why we have the 22 convention coming up for women by men. Because when women give dating, if a woman were to give the kind of dating advice that is actually effective in the dating world to consolidate or to snag a high value guy, women would not like that advice, right? So real world dating advice is you don't have a man's trust automatically just because you're a woman. Number one, you got to earn his trust. A lot of guys have this false mindset. Well, listen, I trust everyone until they give me reason not to. Dude, women have been giving us reason not to trust them for 2 fucking decades. Right? But you're going to tell me that you still trust these bitches? Hell no. She's got to earn your trust. You got to check in with him, let him know where you are, who you're with, et cetera, et cetera. And listen, he shouldn't have to tell you to do these things. You should automatically be doing this. Show him your phone, when you want, if he wants to see it. Now, a lot of people might say, well, that's insecure and that's controlling and this and that and the other. Listen, I am possessive and I am controlling because that's just who the fuck I am. But here's the thing. If you don't want to get robbed, don't leave your doors unlocked.
Donovan, why don't we just keep it simple? Like, why are you letting somebody else tell you how to be a man that attracts women?
Right. I was just going to
say, women aren't there to attract women. In fact, women usually hate other women anyway. Based on,
I would rather learn it the hard way than have somebody tell me, even if they were right. I'll figure it out myself because experience is a better teacher.
Right. Here, but actually, that gets to what I'm just gonna read this real quick here. It's okay. A woman wants you to get it on your own without having to be told how. That initiative and the experience needed to have had developed it makes you a man worth competing for. Women despise a man who needs to be told to be dominant. Overtly relating this to a guy defeats his credibility as a genuinely dominant guy. The guy she wants to fuck is dominant because that's the way he is instead of who she had to tell him to be. Okay. So observing the process will change that process. This is the root function of every shit test a woman ever gives you. Okay. If a masculinity has to be explained to a man, he's not the man for her.